Okay, so in lesson 2, we're going to talk about whether or not something is a linear function, how to put the function in standard form, and then how to find x and y intercepts. So these are kind of like your definitions or steps on how to do it. So I'm going to give you a second to write these down. And if you run out of time before I move on, you can always pause the video and before you move on. Okay, so talk about how to find a linear function, how to put it in standard form, which is different than slope-intercept form, how to find the x-intercept, and how to find the y-intercept. Okay, so in order for an equation to be a linear function, that means it needs to be able to be written in slope-intercept form. F of x, or y equals mx plus b. You cannot have a variable in the denominator. So that can look one of two ways. Okay, so by variable in the denominator, you can't see something like this. Okay, that's a variable in the denominator. Also a variable in the denominator, these are the same equations. If you have negative exponents, then that means it's the same thing as having a variable in the denominator. We'll talk more about that later. Okay. Second rule, you can't have two variables multiplied together. So you can't have something that's like y equals x z. That's not a linear function. And then no exponents other than 1 on the variable. That means like you can't have like y equals x squared, or x cubed, or x to the 4th, etc. Okay, so those are all examples of what cannot be. These three things have to be true. Okay, can't be any variables in the denominator, can't have more than one together, and no exponent other than 1. Standard form. This is when you get the x's and the y's on the left-hand side, and then equals the number. A, so the number in front of x has to be positive. We have to get rid of all fractions and decimals, and it needs to be fully reduced. So what does that mean? Like if they're all divisible by 2, you would need to divide them all by 2. The x-intercept is where the graph crosses the x-axis. So when you're looking at your graph, this is your x-axis. How you find it algebraically is you're going to put 0 in for y and solve. Now I'm not going to make you graph them today, so we're just going to talk about how you find them. And these are all going to be points. If you put 0 in for y, you're going to have some kind of number for your x, and then your point would be 0 for y. Okay, and then your y-intercept, where it crosses the y-axis. So you put 0 in for x and solve, so you get 0 for your x, and then some kind of number for your y. Okay? So we're going to kind of go in order. When I do examples, it's going to go in order what this is, which is also the same order of your homework. Okay, so the first part, we're going to identify whether a function is linear, and we're just going to write yes or no. On your homework, it's going to ask you to explain. You do not need to explain. Okay? Okay, so we're going to do 4 examples. So remember our 3 rules. You can't have a variable in the denominator. You can't have more than one variable multiplied together. And you cannot have anything higher or anything different than on an exponent other than just x. Okay? Alright, so if I look at the first one. Alright, so I'm not dividing by a variable because I just have a number on one. You're allowed to divide by numbers. There's just an x. Okay, I don't have 2 variables multiplied together, so is this a linear function? The answer would be yes. Okay, but when I look at number 2, I can't have an x in the denominator. So as soon as I see that there's a variable in the denominator, automatically my answer is going to be no. You also can't have square roots. So if you see like a square root of x, that's also not a linear function. Okay, number 3. This is not a linear function either because I have an x squared. You can't have anything that's other than just an x. So this would be no. And then my last one would be yes. Okay, if you want to explain these problems in your homework, you can, but you do not have to. Okay. Alright, so that's kind of the first thing. The next thing we're going to talk about is how do you put equations in standard form. Okay, in order to be in standard form, you need x and y on the left-hand side, in that order, equals the number. So like for this one, I have y on the left-hand side, but I need to get the x. So since I have a negative 4x, move that over. I would add 4x. So then I have 4x plus y equals negative 7. Okay. Rules to know if I'm done. It's in this order. I don't have any fractions or decimals, and a has to be positive, which it is. So that means my equation is in standard form. Second part, identify a, b, and c. These are your coefficients, so these are your numbers. A is the number in front of x, b is the number in front of y, and c is the constant on the other side. Those do not include variables. Those are just your numbers, your coefficients. Okay, next example, you need to get x and y both on the left. So I would have to subtract 9y from both sides. So I have negative 8x minus 9y equals negative 6. Okay, I don't have any fractions or decimals, but a is negative. If I want a to be positive, then either I have to multiply everything by negative 1 or you divide everything by negative 1. Doesn't matter which one you choose, you're going to get the same results either way. So I'm just going to divide everything by negative 1. So then that gives me positive 8x plus 9y equals 6. Okay, we don't care about if the other things are positive or negative, we just care that the first one has to be. Okay, then I'm going to label, so A is the number in front of x, so that would be 8. B is the number in front of y, so that would be 9. C is your constant, so that would be 6. Okay, we're going to do one more. x and then y equals the number. So first thing we want to do is subtract 4x. So I have negative 4x plus 12y equals 8. Okay, a is negative, so I know if I want to make this positive, I'm going to have to multiply or divide everything by negative 1. So then I would have 4x minus 12y equals negative 8. Okay, but on this one we're not finished because all of those are both divisible by 4. So if there's something, the biggest thing, the greatest common factor that goes into these, we're going to have to divide by that number. So those are all divisible by 4. So I divide those by 4, that gives me x minus 3y equals negative 2. So that is my standard form. A is 1, B is negative 3, and C is negative 2. Okay, so that's standard form. So the only thing we have left to talk about then are intercepts. So we're going to find the x and the y-intercept. On your homework, it's going to tell you that you have to graph. I am not going to make you graph. Okay, I want to just talk about today, how do we do it algebraically? So how do we actually solve and find out what it is? So we're going to find the x and we're going to find the y-intercept of the equation. Okay, so to find the x-intercept, if I want to find the x one first. If I want to find the x-intercept, I'm going to put 0 in for y, and we're going to solve for x. So I put 0 in for y, we're going to solve for x. So I'm going to subtract 5x from both sides. So I have negative 5x equals 12. Divide by negative 5, x equals negative 12 fifths. Okay, that's not how you write an x-intercept. This is how you write an equation that's x equals. This would be a vertical line. So you have two options on how you can write your answer. You can put the x-intercept is equal to this number, or that's not very good. Okay, or you can put it as a point. So this is my x number, and I put y was 0. Okay, but do not write it like this. That's a line, okay? We're not finding lines, we're finding where the point is. Point's just a little dot on the graph. Okay. Then to find the y-intercept, you're going to put 0 in for x and solve. So if I put 0 in for x, this would be y equals 5 times 0 plus 12. So this would be y equals 0 plus 12, which would be y equals 12. Okay, same thing. This is a line. This is a horizontal line. We can't write it like this. So you have two options. You can write the y-intercept is equal to that number, or you can put it as a point, which this point would be 0 in for x, and then the 12 for your y. But do not write it like a line. It's not a line. It's a point. Okay, we'll do one more example of these, and then we'll be done. Okay, so if I want to find the x-intercept, I'm going to put 0 in for y and solve. So I'd have 2x plus 3 times 0 equals 12. Well, 3 times 0 is 0, so this would be 2x equals 12. Divide both sides by 2. I get x equals 6. Okay, but we can't write it like that, so your options are to write x-intercept equals 6, or you can write it as a point, which would be 6, 0. Okay, then to find the y-intercept, I'm going to put 0 in for x, so 2 times 0 plus 3y equals 12. 2 times 0 is 0, so this would be 3y equals 12. Divide both sides by 3, I get y equals 4. Okay, so your options for your answers, you could write y-intercept equals 4, or your point would be 0. Okay, so that'll actually get you through this whole thing. So we have the linear functions, we have standard form, and then you have x and y intercepts. Okay, I'm going to put your homework at the end of the video, but I'm also going to put it on a different slide in Canvas, so you'll be able to see either way. So your homework is page 72. You're going to do problems 16 through 24. 26 through 30, and 35 through 40. And you're going to do all of those. Okay, so each one is their own section. You have your linear yes or no's, you have your standard form, and then you have your intercepts. And remember, on the intercepts you do not have to graph.